Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our art unit today. Art is an expression. Lots of people like to paint and draw and do all sorts of creative things. But for some of us who've never attended any art class ever since grade school...
Oh, I'm terrible. Yeah.
It would be very intimidating to try to do some kind of oil painting. But good for us, there is something called paint by numbers, which helps all of us become the next Rembrandt.
Well, I don't know if it helps us to become this amazing artist who paints masterpieces, but they're fun. I did these as a kid. I think they're awfully fun, especially if you don't have any artistic talent like me. I have no artistic talent, at least in visual arts. So if you get one of these kits, you just follow the numbers, and by the time you finish, it looks like you indeed have an artistic talent with paint.
Indeed. And of course, you can just fill in the little blanks with the paint, but I guess there's more to it than that. There are actually ways to make it even better. But we'll talk about the colorful world of paint by numbers in today's program, so let's get to it. Here's our article read from top to bottom.
Fancy yourself the next Michelangelo, Van Gogh, or Picasso, but don't have a lick of artistic talent? You wouldn't be the first to envy these painters' skills, and it's unlikely that you'll be the last. Luckily, two ingenious businessmen came up with a perfect solution to this situation. Paint by numbers kits. This colorful activity, an idea inspired by the teaching methods of Leonardo da Vinci, was brought to life by Dan Robbins and Max Klein in the 1950s. Robbins, an artist, produced many of the kit's original designs, while Klein, the owner of Palmer Paint Company, distributed the kits. Though the kits were initially seen as a way to boost paint sales, by 1954, Palmer Paint Company had sold more than 12 million of them to eager hobbyists. Indeed, the men had struck gold with their idea. The post-war prosperity of the 1950s, with its rising incomes and ample free time, allowed many Americans to explore personal avenues of creative expression. The kits may sound like toys for children, but they involve more than just filling in blank spaces with the correct colors. Color blending and calculated brushstrokes are just two of the techniques you can learn using the kits. In fact, paint by numbers enthusiasts have several hints to offer you in your aesthetic pursuits. First, begin by painting one color at a time at the top of the canvas and work your way down. Next, you'll get a better sense of the color's intensities by starting with darker colors and working your way toward the lightest tones. Finally, be gentle with your brush. Think of the canvas pulling the paint off the brush as it glides over it, rather than the brush just pushing the paint down. With these tips, you're now ready to begin a colorful paint by numbers quest of your own.
All right, everybody, are you ready? We're going to talk about the colorful world of paint by numbers. Paint by numbers are available in Taiwan, I understand. I guess there's been a recent trend for some of these sort of self-help art books, if you will. These coloring books are very popular. You can buy those.
For adults, yeah.
For adults, exactly. So you can use different kinds of crayons or colored pencils to color those. But there's something else you might consider doing, and that is paint by numbers. These have been around for quite some time. I remember them when I was young. I didn't try it myself. I remember my brothers doing it, and I was quite impressed, actually. They could take this little, I guess it was a little canvas, right? With these little outlines. It was in blue squares or whatever, and they just had these little numbers in the boxes, and all you did was just fill in those boxes with the paint, and voila! You would have your own masterpiece. So again, we're talking about the colorful world of paint by numbers. Now, here's the first paragraph. It says, fancy yourself the next Michelangelo, Van Gogh, or Picasso, but don't have a lick of artistic talent. This is actually a question. Do you fancy yourself? Do you imagine yourself as being an artist that is so good you could be considered the next Michelangelo or the next Van Gogh or the next Picasso? But there's a little problem here. You don't have a lick of artistic talent. Usually lick here as a noun just means the action of putting your tongue on something to usually taste it, or you might be using it to give yourself a bath like cats do. They lick themselves. They lick their fur. But in this case, to have a lick of something means to have a little bit of something. You don't have a lick. You don't have any kind of artistic talent. In this case, lick is often used with a negative. Oh, I don't have a lick of talent in music. I will never be famous as a guitar player.
Or if someone's always doing like dumb things, you'll often hear people say he doesn't have a lick of sense, meaning common sense. You know, he just does dumb things.
Doesn't have one bit of common sense.
Not even a little bit, yeah. So it's usually, as Tom said, used in a negative way. This is me. This describes me. I don't have a lick of artistic talent. Visual only. I'm a great musician, but I just can't draw or paint or anything like that. My mom was a painter. My sister can draw. I didn't get any of that talent. Well, you wouldn't be the first to envy or really be kind of jealous or really wanting something that you see somebody else having is envy them. You wouldn't be the first to envy these painters' skills that we've talked about. Michelangelo, Van Gogh, Picasso, they were all great painters, among other things. Well, luckily, two ingenious businessmen came up with a perfect solution to this situation or problem. They've got this idea, and they put it into practice. They developed a company that would sell these little paint by numbers kits. If you're ingenious, guys, it means you're really clever. You're very much unusual. I think most people are just average people. But if you're ingenious, it means you come up with really great ideas. You're original, you're inventive. You may not be a genius, but you have clever ideas that other people just don't think of. And they came up with this idea to offer to the world, to put on the market, these paint-by-number kits. A kit is just a group of things that you need to accomplish a certain thing. A paint-by-numbers kit would include the canvas, the paintbrushes, the paint, things like that.
Okay, or for example, if you're going hiking, you might bring along a first aid kit. And moving on, let's continue talking about color by numbers. This colorful activity, an idea inspired by the teaching methods of Leonardo da Vinci, was brought to life by Dan Robbins and Max Klein way back in the 1950s. If they thought of that idea back in the 1950s, there's a good chance that these two fellas are dead. They are 6 feet under. They are pushing up daisies. If they're still alive, please forgive me, but that did happen quite some time ago. They were inspired by the teaching methods of Da Vinci. If you're inspired by something, you kind of get your ideas from a certain person and you think, oh, those are really good ideas. I like that. I would like to learn more, and I would like to do something with that information. So they learned about his teaching methods. I don't know exactly what they were. Maybe similar. Filling in little numbers with the colored paint or something like that. They thought, hey, that's a cool idea. We can use that idea to let people be their own kind of artist.
And it says there in the second part of that first sentence in the second paragraph that they brought this idea or this teaching method to life. If you bring something to life, you're usually talking about some idea or method that you've read about. It's written, it's in a written form, and suddenly you turn it into a form that's alive. Maybe you turn a book into a movie, and so that book was brought to life. Here they're actually talking about something they read long ago that Da Vinci did, and they brought it to life by actually coming up with a company and putting this paint-by-numbers kit on the market so people could buy it. So that was a great idea they came up with, being inspired by Mr. Leonardo da Vinci, who is very famous, of course. Now, they've got two guys, Dan Robbins, Max Klein, Robbins is the artistic one. He is the artist, and he was the one who produced many of the kit's original designs. So he's the one who actually would put on the canvas, all of the little areas that you had to paint with different colors. That would take some work. That's not easy. I think you'd need to be an artist to do that. And Max Klein, his part of this partnership was to distribute the kit. So he was the businessman, the real businessman in this particular partnership. He owned a paint company called Palmer Paint Company, which I have not heard of. So maybe it no longer exists. I don't know.
They might still be around. I'm not sure. But in any case, yeah, as you said, he was kind of the business mind of the team there. So he distributed the kits. If you distribute something, that just means you pass them out. You send them around to different people. Of course, you're going to sell them, but they shipped them from their factory, wherever it was, to various distribution centers. And then they delivered those to local hobby stores and things like that.
Yeah, so he's supplying the goods. So if you supply the goods to different stores or other people in your chain, then you are distributing your product. Now, though the kits were initially, or at first, that's what initially means, at first, they were seen as a way to boost or improve or bring up paint sales. By 1954, Palmer Paint Company had sold more than 12 million of them to eager hobbyists. So they had different goals, actually. When they first started promoting these kits, it was just to improve the sales of Palmer paint. But then they discovered, this is popular just on its own. It has nothing to do with the paint that we sell in our store. So they came up with a good idea kind of accidentally, almost you could say. So they did very, very well. If you boost something, you bring it up. For example, if you go to a restaurant with a small child, maybe a toddler, they'll often have booster seats that help that little one sit up a little taller so they can reach the table. That's a booster seat.
That's what it is, all right. It gives you a boost. And, of course, lots of these painting kits were bought by hobbyists. A hobbyist is a person who pursues a particular hobby, like coin collecting, putting together models, stuff like that. And we'll continue talking some more about paint by numbers in just a second. We're going to take a time out now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hi everyone, my name is Jenny. 今天我们要看的是第4单元，我们的主题跟艺术有关。大家也许也很喜欢画画，那这个地方要介绍给大家的这种画，我们说它是数字油画。怎么说呢？我们就先看文章里面怎么介绍的。一开始我们都知道，不定每个人都有艺术天分，也许你就是一点都没有。提到一点点、一丁点的什么，你会想到用 lick 这个字吗？ L-I-C-K 其实本来是用舌头舔一下东西，这个舔的动作，但是如果你要讲一丁点什么的时候，你也可以用 have a lack of something 这个地方说你可能自己真的觉得自己没有一点点的艺术天分，所以 don't have a lack of artistic talent 就是为什么你看到 lack 这个字。我们再往下看，下面说如果你也是觉得没有艺术天分，其实有人帮你解决了。是有2位聪明的商人，他们想出来的方法就是用数字油画套组。在第2段里面，他就说到这个到底是什么东西呀？其实要话说从头。一开始呢，我们知道有一位很有名的画家 Leonardo da Vinci， 他的教学方法启发了这个活动的开始。我们先看到提到这个 colorful activity， 它后面有一个逗点，然后逗点后面这里 an idea inspired by the teaching methods of Leonardo da Vinci，接着又一个逗点，然后才看到动词 was brought to life。 好，我们要提的是在英文里面呢，有一种用法叫做同位语，而这个同位语呢，就是像在这个地方前后逗点隔开，其实这个片语指的就是前面说的 colorful activity， 只是变成另外多加一点细节说明，在英文上它是同位语等同前面这个主词的内容。动词当然要从逗点后面看起，也就是在这里的 was brought to life。接下来我们就继续看历史上是如此，而在1950年代呢，这时候就有人想到了数字油画套组。这个人罗宾斯他设计了这种东西，他设计之外，后面我们看到连接词 while， 而还有这一家公司的老板 Klein， 他负责销售这个套组。那我们要谈的是 while， 其实英文的 while 本身的意思有两种，一个呢有时候是讲 A 在做某事的时候，另外 B 做另外一件事，可是呢有的时候它有一种转折的含义，就是 A 如何而 B 又怎样，这是两个对照性的说法，以在这边就是一个对照的含义。我们再来看这两个的分工，当然也就是我们今天有这些东西可以给大家用的一个最大的原因。但是一开始提到它只是一个提高颜料销售的办法而已，后来到了1954年，当时已经卖了多少，这个数字当然很高，可是我们要强调的重点是 by 这个介系词加时间。如果有这样的一个时间的截止线，它后面句子里面的时态要特别留意哦，因为通常在这个截止线之前已经完成了，做到了什么，我们会用完成式。所以如果截止线在过去，主句的时态就会用过去完成，像就是在这边 had sold more than 12 million of them， 这个时态要特别注意。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, let's continue with our lesson, everybody. We're talking about paint by numbers. And we talked a little bit about the history of these paint by number kits. They were kind of invented by Dan Robbins and Max Klein way back in the 50s. One of them was an artist. The other one worked for a paint company, and they kind of cooperated, and they were able to sell lots of these kits to hobbyists all over the world. Now, indeed, the men had struck gold with their idea. If you strike gold, that means you become very, very successful. You don't actually find the gold. You could strike gold. You know, if you find gold, it's kind of hard to do these days.
Yeah.
But, if you just have an idea in which you can get rich really fast, then you have struck gold. Struck is the past tense and past participle of the verb to strike.
It's pretty exciting if you can strike gold with some sort of idea that you have. And we're still seeing a lot of new businesses spring up where they had just had a great, original, very clever, ingenious idea, and they were able to really become popular quickly. Well, the post-war prosperity of the 1950s had a lot of good things about it. People were making more money. That's why we're talking about rising incomes. Your income is how much you make. Your salary was going up, was rising. You had a lot more free time. Ample means plenty. I have plenty of free time. I have ample free time to do what I want. And so a lot of Americans back then, they had a lot of free time, some extra money. They could devote to their hobbies. Now, when you talk about prosperity, you're talking about a period of time where people just have a little bit more money. Things are going well. The economy's thriving. I wouldn't say we're in an era of prosperity right now. Most of the economies around the world aren't doing very well. But post-war means after World War II. It was kind of a boom time for a lot of countries, especially for America.
Indeed. So there was that post-war prosperity. They had ample free time. Ample just means a lot of something, a lot of extra, more than you really need, more than enough. And this allowed lots of Americans to explore those personal avenues of creative expression. If you explore something, that just means you find out more information about that thing. You try it out. And yes, they probably studied business and science. And they thought, well, I want to release the artist in in me. I want to be creative. So they explored these personal avenues of creative expression. An avenue is just usually a road in some big city, like Fifth Avenue or something. But in this particular case, it's just a way to achieve some kind of goal.
That's right. Now, the next paragraph talks about the kits. Now, when I first saw these kits, I thought they were really just made for children, but that's not true. They kind of sound like toys, don't they? You know, because kids love to color, but they involve more than just filling in blank spaces with the correct colors. There's some technique to this, and you can actually, if you're really working hard and focused on what you're doing, you can make them look quite beautiful. There's color blending, where you take two colors of paint and you put them together. You mix them together. That's blending. And there are calculated brush strokes. Calculated means there are a number of brush strokes that you really are going to actually count. So you can't just like 随便. You have to do a good job by counting how many strokes of that brush that you make. So these are just two of the techniques you can learn by just using the kits, which will transfer over to your own artistic work when you start painting, I would say freehand, where you don't have a pattern to follow.
So it's kind of an educational tool at the same time, so you can use these different kinds of brush strokes, maybe different sizes of brushes and things like that. These are two of the techniques or skills that you can use when you're trying to learn how to paint by numbers. And in fact, paint by numbers enthusiasts have several hints to offer you in your aesthetic pursuits. So we've got paint by numbers enthusiasts. An enthusiast is a person who is very interested in a particular activity or a particular subject. An enthusiast, you could be a bicycle enthusiast, for example. You like to go ride your bicycle with your friends and stuff like that. Or you could do all sorts of things. Photography enthusiast or whatever. It's my hobby, photography. And these are enthusiasts, and they've got some experience. So they've got some hints for you. Here are some suggestions in your aesthetic pursuits. Aesthetic means having to do with beauty and how good things look. Basically, what they look like and whether they look good or not. A pursuit is just something that you follow or that you pursue. Something you do for personal fulfillment.
Yeah, I was going to say for enthusiasts, I often use the word fan. I don't often say I'm an enthusiast. I just say I'm a fan of something. So this is one of the things you can do if you want to get a little bit better at this. First, here's one tip, one piece of information that might make you a little bit better. You're going to begin by painting one color at a time at the top of the canvas that comes with the kit, and then work your way down. Canvas is a very strong, coarse type of fabric. It's unbleached cloth. It doesn't have a color. It's kind of this, I don't know, the color of eggshell, maybe you could say.
Kind of, an off-white sort of.
Yeah, it's not white, it's off-white. And so you start at the top, and if you work your way down, it just means you finish at the top, and then you move a little lower, and then you keep moving lower as you finish up at the upper top part.
Okay, and another hint that they have is to get a better sense of the color's intensities. You can do this by starting with the darker colors and then working your way toward the lightest tones. Okay, so these are colors' intensities. Intensity just means how bright it is, whether it's very, very dark blue, or middle blue, or very light blue. You get a better idea if you start with the darker colors. And here we've got this phrase, working your way towards something. If you go top to bottom, you're working your way down. Here, you're working your way towards something, getting closer and closer to using those lighter tones so that you can get a better understanding of those colors. So those are a couple of hints that we've got so far. And finally, here's another hint that these enthusiasts offer us. Be gentle with your brush. Okay, don't treat it like it's a screwdriver or a hammer or something like that, or a chisel. It's gentle, so be gentle with your brush. And think of it this way. Think of the canvas actually pulling the paint off the brush, as the brush glides over it rather than the brush just pushing the paint down. So yeah, don't think of your brush as stabbing the canvas. Think of the canvas as kind of sucking it out of your brush, which it sort of does actually, and that way you're more gentle with the canvas, and you'll be surprised at the masterpieces you begin to produce as a result.
Yeah, I know that especially the boys, when they paint, they tend to use too much force with their brush. And so what they're trying to just say here is be gentle. Don't brush so hard because it won't turn out so well. So those are the tips that they've given to us. And I think these tips would actually help if you're a real artist like Tom. Well, with these tips, you're now ready to begin a colorful paint by numbers quest of your own. A quest is kind of like an adventure, right? If you're going to go on an adventure, you have a lot of exciting things that you're doing. But a quest, you're also searching for something. So maybe you're searching to find a new hobby or to discover that you have some hidden talent in terms of art. We hope that you find your talent that might be really well hidden like mine is. I can't find mine.
You can probably find it eventually. Don't worry about that. That brings us to the end of our lesson for today, but our Chinese teacher still needs to talk to us for a couple of minutes.
我们继续来看这个数字油画它的发展过程。到了1950年代，也就是第二次世界大战之后，这时候呢，当然时空环境有变。他说到 With its rising incomes and ample free time， 这个 with 我们知道这个介系词，它往往就有提供你一个条件情况的含义，再加上这样子的条件之下，造成了很多美国人他们当时就可以探索他个人创意表达的方式，换句话说就是从事作画。那么下一段呢，我们要来看看这个所谓的数字油画是不是就是给小孩子玩的呢？其实可能不光是这样而已。那下面就告诉你，它可以教你什么技巧。再往下读，我们会看到，在英文里面啊，当你要解释1点、2点、3点的说明的时候，有些字非常的重要，这就是所谓的transitional words， 像这边就很明白的，你可以看到它往下告诉你几个提示里头，第一个就 first， 接下来一个它用 next， 然后呢到最后一个他说 finally。 好，这样的层次，这种 transitional words 大家应该要特别注意，也许你学会之后就可以真的开始作画了。好，倒是这里要特别留意的就是那个 us。Think of the canvas pulling the paint off the brush。 好，提到你作画的技巧，然后后面有一个 as it glides over it。 as 其实也是一样，这个字有很多不同的解释，但是在这边的 as 就是当 when 的意思。我们今天节目就到这边结束，下次见。
That is it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And in addition to learning your English, you can also spend some time perfecting your art skills by using paint by numbers or adult coloring books, whatever you want. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.